Hello, welcome to another evening in the workshop with relic'd guitars. Trying to keep track of projects on there, so there's a very tidy list of things to do. But anyway, tonight we have Terry's vintage Icon V6, nice guitar from the vintage range, the John Hornby Skews School of Rock and Roll. These are kind of deliberately relic'd, slightly relic'd kind of strats with a bit of the old saffron colour down here. It's kind of not to everyone's taste, but I do like I quite like the matte, or it's a matte finish here. But these are nice guitars. I've had a few V6 type things along the way. In a way, the Encore JHS range are pretty good value. They all share a kind of family resemblance, and these are kitted out with the Wilkinson single coils. I've forgotten the code designation, but they're nice sounding single coils. It's quite a lightweight body, but it's still got a nice thickness, full size thickness to it, and got some kind of pretend relicing in various places, as you can see. And it has what I think is quite a nice wide feeling neck. However, as with a lot of guitars, this one comes with really high action both ends, and Terry's asked me to give it a setup and to set that action really nice and low. So I think we're going to end up in the same kind of place as most most of these types of guitars that I've worked on. I think we're going to redo the nut. Now the thing about this nut here is quite interesting. Vintage are annoying in one way, because it's a non-standard size nut, and that ends up with almost always having to make a new one out of bone. Now if I'm going to make a new one out of bone, which is going to obviously be white, then I might as well make it as a adjustable one, providing I've got the little bits and pieces to do it. And I might show you how I do that. Shall I do that first? I think that is probably the best thing to do first. So this is fitted with a plastic nut, and it's actually got some, wow, it's got some little inserts in there. Wow, who put those in? Terry, did you put those in? Don't know how well you, excuse the noise, how well you can see that, but when I poke this, you're going to see these little bits of something or other come out. What on earth is that? A little tiny sliver of wood in each of these. Out they come. So I presume that these have been holding the strings off the first fret. We can pretty much find out by replacing one of these, and yeah, it's almost touching the first fret. It's not far off. Wow, that's funny. There's a closer to where I'd like them, at least the first two. Anyway, they're not consistent all the way through, so somebody's going to raise these up with those little funny shims, which will not do much. Well, they won't do too much bad, but it's not too great for the tone because it will lose it somewhere. Now I want to keep the strings on while I do this, because it's probably a bit easier than taking them off, but I'm conscious that they're going to be sort of flapping about in the way of this nut. Now these graphite nuts are quite difficult undertakings. Now I haven't got any green garden wire kicking around, and I used to have bits of it. I know there's some in the house. It would be probably sensible to go and get it, but I like to use a bit of the old green stuff. Look, a spare string. Oh no, it's not. Let's see if this is a bit of spare green wire. There you go. Just chuck that out of the way for now. So we can use this as a string spreader. Just get them out of the way of the nut, really. And we'll do it around the top of the headstock. I could take them right off, but they're coiled and the chances are they may well break at some point soon, so I just want to try and keep them. I need them to last as long enough to do the fret leveling, really. That's the main thing. So I'm just going to put them under a bit of a pull here, if I can do it. Come along. Not quite working the way I intended. There's those little metal, cute little metal string spreaders. They work pretty well. This is one way. Another way around doing it, just tie those up to the tuner and get them out of the way. And this one we could probably tie it to the other one. Something like that. Just keeps it a bit tidier out of the way. Now, so this nut has got to come out. There's a little chip away anyway on that thing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see how responsive it is to coming out with a little tap. Otherwise, if you have to, you can take out a Strat nut with a by cutting it down the middle. But we'll see if this one's going to go for a walk on its own. So I'm just going to sort of like dig a little, and yeah, there you go, that's deciding to come out. So kind of, it's good to, if you can get your hand or your fingertip in there, fingernail in there, you can get a better sense of, you know, what, how tightly fitted it is. Pretty well fitted, this. Chances are it's going to break because it looks like it's glued somewhere in the middle. Actually no, we've managed to break the glue seal. So there we are. It's a bit sort of ragged, but that's fine. We'll ditch that. What I will do is I'll get me another blade, wherever they have gone. It's been a busy weekend, interesting couple of days. After this, just spent the last half an hour doing a couple of things. First of all, I was concreting in our washing line, which the old one broke, so I bought a new one. And I thought I was being clever reusing the old one. Had a very tough, heavy-duty galvanised sort of metal pipe that it stood in. So I thought, I know, I'll reuse that and keep it in its original concrete footing in the garden, rather than fill the garden with more concrete, which isn't such a great thing. Anyway, I put it in this stood it in this original concrete tube, which is, sorry, metal tube, galvanised tube, which was concreted in the ground. And then today Claire put some washing on it and it snapped because it was corroded, the original. Anyway, so I went and got some postcrete and did the old postcrete jobby on it. Okay, so what we've got somewhere, we have got various things. What have we got? We have got loads of Strat nuts of different kinds. We've got a left-handed one, which we don't need. We've got a tusk one here that might be quite good. Well, I say, you know what? That might just work. That's actually, I think I might use that. It's well, it's blank. So if I use it, I have to do a fitting, you know, a cutting of all the slots on it, which I'm sort of trying to avoid doing. So let's start with something here. Let's begin with right. That's a adjustable tusk insert, which, you know what, that's for a Les Paul. And what we've got is we've got a couple of pre-made ones for a Strat, but this is now tightly fitted. This is actually not so bad. No, this isn't unusually wide. I thought these vintages were wider, but they're not, thankfully. Right, this is a left-handed one that's sort of pre-drilled that I've already done and tapped out. So that's no good because it's left-handed. So the bottom line is I don't have anything knocking about that'll do, but I do have some of the, what do you call them? Those things, grub screws kicking around. So that's the issue. I've got to buy some more because they're a particular size. Sorry about this. I'm just, oh, there they are. Look, right. So I've got the grub screws. Now up here, I've got the, no, it's not those. In here, I've got the ultra fine hex key I need to make these grub screws work. Now this one is just a dummy top of a nut. Actually, it was a kind of cap, and I was working. I tested this one out and set this one on top of a little footing, and actually, I've discovered since that you don't need a solid footing. The wood, the rosewood, is solid enough. So what I would propose to do is to get a right-handed Strat nut, which is that one. That looks, yeah, that's right-handed. Check the width, which is good. Now we've got to thin this down to size to fit it in, which I'm going to do. But first of all, let's put these other adjustable bits and pieces away. You can go in there. Adjustable. Yeah, seems to work pretty well. I've done this on quite a few different guitars. Certainly the adjustable Les Paul style one is really straightforward. It's a neat thing to use because it's reusing something that Tusk Graphtec made as a cure, a fix for a problem that Gibson had. Possibly didn't fix cleverly enough, you might say. So Graphtec sort of jumped in with a solution which was very clever, and look at that, that's almost perfectly fitted in, a little bit more off. Yeah, so they came up with this insert solution which is designed basically to go into the little bass stroke housing in the Gibson Les Paul, but actually as soon as I saw it I realised that it would work in any Les Paul guitar, providing I made a little footing for it. Technically it would probably also work without the footing, but because the Les Paul has a sort of open end whereas the Strat has a slot, as you can see, I felt better putting a bass unit onto it. Anyway, so I decided to make some with Milliput, that white modelling clay, and so I can hand shape those around the insert, the Tusk insert. Yeah, there you go, look at that, beautiful. Right, so that's a good nut. Yay. Let's just have a look at check the slots are in good shape. Yep. Yeah, actually they're quite interesting. They're not, it's hard to see the difference in sizes. The E is bigger, then it looks like 4 sizes similar saying, so we might have to do a tiny bit of adjustment, but the idea now is this is the right width, perfect width. It's too tall, so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to take this down at the bottom, and then I'm going to need to, actually before I do, I'm going to use the pillar drill. I'm going to drill little holes in here that I'm going to then tap out to fit the little grub screws in, because they are what gives us the adjustability. So I'm going to mark my drill spots, which is there and there, and I'll come back to the sanding board a bit later on. Now one of the things I found is that these things don't, if you come down at them with the drill on their own, they don't start very well. So we need a starter bit of some sort. I think I found that was some white masking tape. Gone for a walk somewhere, I'll find it later. So yeah, we should start with something with a sharp tip. Actually one of these are pretty good. So again, I'll probably put my super duper glasses on for this. I wish I had one of those Rolex jewelers expert, what they call them, horologers. You know, those workbenches that those incredible precision crafts persons work from. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just making a sort of start hole by hand, vertical as I can, because what you find is if you don't give it a little starter hole, the drill bit kind of is so small, it's in the bag here, that it wanders off, and then you end up getting it kind of going out the bottom of the nut at a different angle. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting that sort of vertical downward force to just give it a little start hole, which the thin drill bit itself can't do. Now we could do this by putting this in the what do you call it, drill press, but actually it isn't really necessary once you get this start hole. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm saying this is because the nut is slightly tilted backwards. Never tell which way it is, that way. And so that when the little thin bit hits it, it tends to try and wander down the hill as well. So this vertical start hole is a good start point for that little skinny drill. So we'll just make sure we get going with that. Okay, that's fine. And actually we'll put that away now. So what we'll do is we will use this tiny drill bit in here, which I keep now in this one little bit. I probably need a little plastic case. I've got my tiny Allen keys that go with this size nut, and I've got a little tiny drill bit which will be just the right size for me to do the tapping, the little tap and die kit thing, which is over here somewhere, going by the name of Rolson. It's a little miniature one. So what I'm going to do is I'll lift you up there. It's a bit of a cluttered place. I've got my workbench, my Black and Decker workmate thing. It's somewhere else at the moment, so over my stepmom's place. So I'm a little bit up in the air with where things are put. Those wires are there to extend the area from my DAB radio, so it picks up the stations a bit better. Okay, you can stay there. Right, I'm going to tell you what, let's use a piece of wood. Let's use this piece of white oak. I'll lift it up to the right height. Perfect. Can you see along there? Alright, so I'm going to run this little drill. Two little holes. Thank you. Stay there. Things are all up in the air in different places. Right, get down under here. Okay, now we're back to a little tiny bit of engineering marvelness. I've already broken one of these, the right size. I've only got one left of the correct size, and I used one trying to cut a metal one. Actually, it was a piece of, looked like a piece of carbon steel or something, masquerading, covered in gold. What's that stuff? Gold. Electroplate, but it was masking. It was bought from China. It listed as a brass nut, and of course it was anything but brass. Okay, so now I'm going to cut the thread in here. It's very delicate. It's very satisfying too. You thread it through. It's kind of guessworkish, but it's really satisfying thing. I know some people back away and stuff, but this is soft enough to go all the way through in one cut. And you'll see it coming out the other end there. Now, if this were to break down, I would buy myself another one of these. Sure enough, here comes Claire, I think. Hello, sweetie. Hello. Here comes Claire with a cup of tea. The lady who knows. The lady who knows.
You're right.
Yeah, look, I'm just tapping and dyeing. I don't know what they're calling it. Tapping some screw threads in bone. It's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Ridiculously.
No.
And then you get, look, you get this. What's this? This is like your you know, your little watchmaker in Switzerland. Yeah. You get your tiny little grub screw. That. Then you go, where's my threaded? Oh, I've forgotten where the threaded hole is. And you go, look, you go.
I know.
Isn't that?
It's great, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I remember doing that in silver.
Have I gone in the right hole? I must have. Actually, I might not have. I thought I had. Which hole did I just do? Actually, no, that does.
Don't know your holes, can you?
Madam, that does fit. Hang on, let's try.
It's cold in here.
Oh, maybe. I'm sure that was the right one. It must be. They ain't going to go. Well, I'll overdo it again. Anyway, so yes, I went up to Dad and Linda's, and Linda couldn't get the door closed.
Was it one of the big
yeah, the one on the dining room side. So I went up there and figured out that there was a little latch that was just moving a bit down the bottom part of it. Oh. Anyway, so we had to just tweak it. So I came back, and then I whatchamacalled it, concreted in the washing line.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
It should be all right by tomorrow. That's the plan.
Yeah. Dry clothes again.
Okay, here we go. This time, in my Rolex of bone nuts. Da-na-na-na.
Look at that.
Adjustable nuttable.
Adjust your nuts.
You can. With relic'd guitars. Anyway, I thought I wanted to get on with this because I had set myself the goal of doing this tonight. Terry's V6. No, I didn't get to watch Star Trek. I was hoping to have an hour, and then I got this call from my dad saying, "Sam, there's a bit of a crisis over here." It's only 3 miles away, so off I went.
Well, no, thank goodness you're there.
Yes.
Sorry.
Play the trumpet. Anyhow, so this is.
It's why you moved them.
I moved them.
You.
Yeah. Well, no, it is why we said to them to come down, because so they'd be closer and we could help out more. And this is the reality of it. I wasn't best pleased.
You hate every moment.
Well, no, I did just then. I wasn't best pleased because I was tired, and we'd already. For those people who say, "Oh, you're horrible. You should go and help your poor father," I already did. I'd been over there building shelves earlier, so it was a callback. So I was a bit annoyed because I wanted to have some downtime. Anyway, so that's done, and I'm going over there tomorrow to finish the shelves too. So look, there's our adjustable bone nut. Look at that technology. Ain't that just beautiful? I love it. That's so nice. And then that sits in there like that on its little stand. Now obviously we're going to take down the underside of that because it's way too tall right now, but so we only need a tiny amount. In fact, I'll measure it with my ultra fine measuring.
Drink my tea.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much. See you in a bit.
Everyone.
Bye everyone. Out come these. Yeah, don't put any. I know you wouldn't hang washing out at night, but just in case, I wouldn't right now. Right. So that goes back in there. That goes back in there. This little guard goes on there, and then this thing goes there, and we are done. What a great technology. Now that's going to have to stick up there, out of the way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep my eye on these. I've got to order some more of these little grub screws because I'm all out of them. Now we're going to take a measurement. I've got a new, slightly more expensive thing, easy to read actually as much as anything. We're going to take a measurement of the depth of this, if I can get it to go down the hole. Why don't you? Thank you. Okay, we are 2.7. Okay, and we really want this to be. We want this is going to sit down 2.7. Plus, we need it to. What do we need it to do? We need it to come up over the thing. 2.7 is level with the top. Okay, and then we actually want it to sit up a bit higher because we've got a millimetre of fret ish. 2.3, so we want to go 3.7, let's say, brings us level with the top of the frets approximately. Okay, so we actually haven't got that much to take off here, so I'm going to do a little mark for my own benefit. So if we go 3.7 from the base, well, if we go from the base of the thingy, that doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Let's go down here a second. Oh, that's back to front for a start. Right, go to here and we go. We have a look at the. So we set that in there and we go, right, that is too high, and we want to come down. So what would we have to do to bring that down? So 2.7. That's 5, and that's 4.5. So we got to take 2.7, 3, 4.5. It's 1.5 to go down. Actually, 1.5 is about right. We want to take it off. 0, 1.5. Let's take 1.5 down. Thing is, with the adjustable nut, you can come up quite a bit from the. You can have the nut set really quite low, and you can rise it up on the little legs. Now, some people have made comments like, "What about the fact that it's standing? The nut is standing on 2 metal legs, effectively." And then the issue is, it's not about. It would be an issue if on an electric guitar the nut's purpose was to transmit vibrations through to the guitar, but in a sense it's the opposite. It's to hold still. Its job is to hold still while the strings vibrate as much as possible through the magnetic field of the pickup. So it's a different case. So I wouldn't put one of these on an acoustic guitar, having thought about it a fair bit. Although I'm sure it would play absolutely fine, I'm just going to avoid doing it because of the conceptual, logical, rational reasons I explained. But on an electric guitar, these work absolutely fine. Don't forget, Graph Tech designed them to work with the Gibson Les Paul, so it's not a bad idea. It's clearly designed and manufactured by a company that absolutely has a pedigree and credibility in saddle technology, bridge saddle. They do all the piezo stuff, if you remember. Okay, so now I'm getting close to the line. I just want to be more careful than anything to make sure the nut bottom is to 90 degrees. So a couple more swipes with the heavy duty stuff, and then I'm going to switch to the finer sandpaper just to make sure it's flattened out nicely. That looks pretty good to me. So we put this in here, and we'd expect to now see it down quite low. Not that you can see it. It's going to sit low in the slot, and then the string is going to be quite low. That's absolutely fine because we're going to come up from there. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit more off it. Just check. Yep. And also I'm just holding back a little bit of sanding on this because I'm conscious that I'm probably going to have to cut down a little bit on the slots as well. So. Okay, right. So get rid of this, and now we've got a thinner nut than we had before, but it's still quite substantial. So what I'm going to do now is to fit the grub screws. One of the things I sometimes do is, if we have to do any further sanding of the nut, I sand down the grub screws as well. And actually what you can do is you can figure out where they've got to be, because one of the things is quite nice is to just gauge it so that you don't have more grub screws sticking out than you really need. So it's a little bit hard. You can't guess it really. You have to wait till you're sort of in the slot and doing the job. So here we go. That's seated in there now. Now one of the things people have said about this arrangement is, oh hello, allow yourself to come in, sir. One of the things that people have said is what do you do to stop, hello, come up then, come and say hello. What do you do to stop the nut from possibly moving side to side? And hello Sonny. And I put two little dents, or little tops of the drill indentation in the rosewood, and sorry, Morris has been out enjoying the spring. Alright sunshine, he's got a bit of bald patches here where he pulled out his tangled fur, bless him, so he looks a bit odd, but he's such a beaut, isn't he? You're such a good boy. Yep, I know you like that thing, you want to rub your nose on the camera as always. Right, let's have a look. So this is probably going to start off sitting very close to the ground in there like that. That's nice. So we're going to need to lose some of the grub screw on that. I'm going to get out the drill bit I'm going to use for the little indentations, but I make them a little bit bigger obviously so that we can, the grub screw has a bit of movement. We don't have to get it exact, or we aren't trying to get it exact same size. Note to self, must go to town and get some more low tack masking tape. I'll put this on here for a second because I want to mark where I need the little indentations to hold the nut to seat on the second, my friend. So it's going to be there and there. Alright, I'm going to turn this off a minute, drink my tea, play with the cat, and I'll be back. Oh, having drilled a couple of little guide holes, or dents I should say, to hold, just to let the feet sit in it. What I'm going to do now is just put these back in here for a second, and we'll see what the action is, and then we'll see how much we've got to remove, or I want to remove, in terms of the grub screws to keep them a nice unobtrusive size. We don't want them sticking into the hand, which can be a pain, literally. So So I like this process because I think this is a really neat little way of using the nut, and what it gives you is it gives you sort of a permanent adjustability, so that if somebody wants to set the action to their own preferred height at some point, they can. So it's just these done up a bit. So we could play like this now straight off. And actually, let's see if we've got any further downward adjustment. Down we go, and that is pretty much down on the deck. So with absolutely no lift at all, we've happened to have come out at about the right sort of playing action. So let's get a note from somewhere. It's actually still a little higher than I'd want, so I'm going to take this down a little bit more. It seems a bit funny to take it down to bring it up, but we want that bit of movement, adjustment possible. So it's a nice careful process. We don't want to take too much away in one go. Although because we've got the adjustability to go back up, we do have that. We have the luxury of it not being the end of the world if we go down too low. But I like to do it in controlled stages. Okay, so you can see the two just little indentations there on the, you might be able to see it, on the rosewood that hold the feet in place. So I'm going to take another 3/4 of a half or 3/4 of a thingy off it. Now what I'm going to do at the same time is that as I do this, I'm going to take some metal off these grub screws, because we don't want it on there. And also at the same time what it does is it flattens the feet out a little bit, which gives them a bit of a more of a surface area, because it's nice to, we need to have the small grub screws to do this job, and they're about as big as they can be for this purpose, but we don't move them that high, so I can sort of keep dialing them through and keep taking off the excess. Yeah, so the small size of these feet means that, you know, they're quite small, but when you flatten them off like this, they get a much bigger, I don't know if you can see, a much bigger footprint. And also you can do, rather than cut them, I could cut them with the bolt cutters and then sort of adjust the, you know, sort of, what's the word? What is the word? Actually, I probably ought, that's the truth, is I probably ought to adjust them with bolt cutters. And the reason for that is dragging them from side to sand them is easier in some ways, but it will danger of kind of opening up the thread. So I'm going to drive these through, and I'm going to cut them in half, literally, while still taking a bit more off the bottom of this nut. So driving them through means I'm pushing the clean end through. Let me get my cutters. I need obviously the hex end still available to me. So I'm going to go halfway along the length of this little fella. 2 bits. And the same again. Of course, this is a little bit, I don't know what the word is, hit and miss, no, eyeballing it. So I'm going to keep the 2 bits I need off to one side. I'm going to chuck the bits I don't need off onto the floor. I'm just going to take a little bit more off this nut as it is. Nice, nice, nice. A bit more off. Then what I'll do is one more time I'll put these back in. Now I have to just have to make sure that we haven't basically we need to make sure that we haven't pinched the metal out so it won't go through the thread. So give it a little bit of a okay, that's trying to cut a new thread through. So it's very small. We just need to soften off any burrs so that we can get this to go through the thread still. Now a way of possibly doing it is to come back through as we did before, backwards. Oh, so we're dealing with the tiniest little things here. We're just trying to protect the thread basically. So let's see if we can do it backwards. I haven't tried this before, sorry you can't see very well. So we're on. Now we want, oh crikey, that isn't working the way I'd like it to do. So we want this to go in, well we can dial it in like that, there you go. I'm pushing it in backwards. This also, I'll just check the second one and take any burrs off it. And then we'll again send this in backwards. Now providing we can get it in backwards, then what I can do is I can just leave it slightly sticking out the bottom again, and then we can just flatten off this remaining. For some reason this one doesn't want to play, does it? Yep, maybe it does. Let's wind it in backwards, there you go. It's so fiddly but it's fun. Alright, so we'll just hold these two, stop them just as they're sticking out a little bit, like that. Now you've got them nicely buried in the, what's it? They're slightly different amounts sticking out, so I'm going to try and balance them up just that little tiny bit, and then I'm just going to very gently try and flatten them out. Nice flattened grub screw feet ready to do their service. So now I'm going to put that back in there. Now we're sitting nice and low. We've got our hex key. So it's a bit of fiddle to get it right, but it is a nice precise thing, and it doesn't really, it's quite robust, and it doesn't have any, doesn't have a load of frustration come with it. Now sometimes you can be doing actually you can be doing things like cutting the nut slots to the correct depth. I mean, this is why I do this more and more now. I used to spend a lot of time and effort cutting the nut slots to get the correct first fret action, which is critical to, you know, the way the guitar plays and, you know, plays in tune and stays in tune. And then found out that by doing this I could get the same first fret action without the risk of overcutting and, you know, the kind of things that is to happen quite regularly or occasionally when doing it by hand. Okay, so now we have, oh god, where's the little hex key? There it is. Now this is sitting down about right on the treble end, and actually not far off all over, so I'm just going to raise it a tiny bit on the bass end, and here we go. Bites, I can feel it biting, up it comes a little bit. Now these are slightly different Let's get this note again. They're slightly different heights. We may have to do a tiny adjustment. Okay, so there we have a really nice action. The only one that's slightly off, I'm afraid, is the G, and I'm going to take care of that with a little bit of an adjustment. And in a way, this was all about not having to do that, but these nuts are not scientifically produced. They're, you know, it's not surprising, or it's not unlikely to find, not unusual to find one that needs a little bit of adjustment to balance out. That's really what this is. And actually, you know, it's nice and easy to just take this down a little bit, but it'll be so little by comparison to what we'd have to normally do. Alright, that's pretty good. And then the B now is a little fraction high, so we'll come back to the B and make a small adjustment there, and that's probably because it's using a slightly wrong slot the way it's cut by the looks of things. So I'm just making the slot a bit more suitable for a B. There we go, nice. Right, so that's a fabulous, you know, little amount of adjustment compared to what I would normally do. But what's critical now is to keep this little hex key. This goes with the guitar from here on inwards. So this is, I bet there's probably some way I could stick that in under here somewhere. I don't like these little string trees. Okay. So I wonder if there is a clever way of, I can stick that under there. There you go. No, I don't want to do that. Do we want to do that? I'll just put it there. Now what I'll do is I'll just stick it for now to the thingy, and then we'll have to figure out where to put it at the end. Might be quite cool to put it somewhere like that. Anyway, holy cow. Right, but that's just useful to have, and I've bought a set, and that's what I do. So when you get an adjustable nut, you get a hex key for the right size to go with it. Which means I have to keep a supply, and they're not cheap, but they're not the world's most expensive either, and I think it's worth the investment to have such a precision, controllable action on your guitar. So that's my little innovation. Mr. Morris has cleared off. That's okay. So now we've got that little bit of precision work taken care of. Oh, that doesn't go in there, but it could do. I tend to keep that one. This is a really crap packaging thing. It's so crap. It doesn't really. Anyway, enough. This lives in the little baggie with the correct little bits, and I have to go and order some more grub screws tonight because I think I'm out now. So that goes in the adjustable nut department, which is this the adjustable? No, that's the new nuts. And this is the adjustable nut at the bottom. In you go. Right, fab. Now, we're on to an easy bit now. This is now the, let's find a decent regular hex key. Now the time is to get on with the setup now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this amp for a minute because I don't need it. Okay, so the first thing to do now, having changed the nut out, and a little bit of, we'll do a little sand off here because it's just a little sharp, but so the first thing I'm going to do is check the relief in the neck and make sure there is a little bit, it's about 0.2 of a mil, which I think is fine for this kind of guitar. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I know my first fret action is good because I've just done it. Now I'm going to check what we've got at the last fret. Now this is actually coming in at 2.2, which I think is certainly too high for what I know Terry wants. So we're going to go down to the standard 1.5 and then work to that. And that's going to be our benchmark for fret leveling. So it's quite low on the saddles here, but not impossibly low. Okay, that's on the inches side. So here we have about 1.5. Little bit of work needed there. Oh, this is 2.5, that's really high. So okay, I'm going to do this next bit by ear by eye, and I'll go back and check each one. So here we are, adjusting these down. The tremolo on this we're going to keep locked down, so I'll double check that in a minute, make sure it's got enough spring loading on it to make sure it'll stay down. Fiddly, fiddly, fiddly. Right. No. So let's have a look. We have 1.4. We have 1.6 fractionally high. Down half. Down half. Okay, 1.3ish. Too high. 1 1/4. 3/4 of a turn, I should say. Still too high. 1.25ish, still too high. Wow, 1.6, still down we go. 1.6 down to 1.3, 1.5. Problem with going with a very low action is you do end up with some grub screws sticking out at the other end, which you can actually buy short ones for that, which are a good idea. Stop them poking in your palm when you're playing with palm muting. Still 1.5. So we're going to almost deck out on this top E. I think it's about it as far as we can get it down. There you go. Right. So all of this action will have changed, or sorry, the tuning will have changed. Let's get it, check it one more time with the tuning. that, it's quite cool because having adjusted that action down now, this is too low for my liking, so I'm going to crank up the ding ding ding, the action a little bit on both ends. There we go there, and then we go here. That's good, that's good, that's good. One more tiny bit on this low side, the bass side. No, is that too high? No. Let's have a look. Okay, so right, so I'm comfortable that I've got a first fret action I'm happy with. I've got a little bit of neck relief. I've got the action right down to where I want it at the other end. So now I'm going to mark up the frets, ready for some fret leveling. So that requires, once again, the strings to be taken off. So we can mark up the frets, and then we'll put them back on again one more time and just hope that they hold out long enough to act as sacrificial strings. Okay, so this is the, now these aren't huge tall frets, so we're going to use a very precise and careful method of fret leveling as always, but in this case it's kind of very doubly important since the frets aren't massively tall. So I like to use this method that I've been doing now for probably 600 or 700 setups or something like that. I think I only did 150 max or something like that of the original method before I switched over to doing it this way. And I think its primary benefit is that I can level the frets whilst removing as little fret metal as possible to achieve the outcome we want. Now with a Strat, sometimes there is a limit to the play, to the lowness of the action that you can get, and when that's the case, it's usually due to the constraints of the radius of the neck. If it's a 9.5 or below, then there's an impossibility of getting an ultra low action. You can get the low action, but you can't get it and have all the bends at the top end be choke free. You have to compromise a little bit. But 9.5 and above tends to be quite easy. Well, you can get all the bends. So when I'm leveling frets, the aim is to make this action play as cleanly as possible with all the notes playing, but to allow the bends to work without any choking. Alright, so this time, because the neck's quite flat to begin with, I'm going to use my thin truss rod. It's like the lottery machine. I'm going to use set of balls A. And so I'm going to slack it off, place my little feet. These are my little calibrators. I've used these so much now, but if they're wearing, they'll be wearing at the same rate since I've used them. That sounds a bit crunchy. Does that need some oil or something? So the idea is I will use the hex key to tune the truss rod in to match the curvature in this neck. And it's only a very small amount of curvature, so I've got a very small amount of curvature in the truss rod. And then, once that's done, I let the self-adhesive sandpaper on the underside of the truss rod do its thing, and kind of work backwards and forwards over the area that belongs to the high E string, called the E track. And then fairly quickly you'll see which frets are cutting, whether they're actually all cutting reasonably evenly. There don't appear to be, well, there's 3 lowish ones at the end here, and then there's a couple of low ones here, but it's cutting everywhere else. So the nice thing about the method, of course, is that you can replace the string, pick the guitar up and try out every note. A little bit ziz down there, as I call it. So I'm going to calibrate it again just to be sure. I've lost my marbles here, where I put the position of things. Yeah, so there's a little bit of work needs happening down there, so I'm going to make sure that I've got the right curve going on this thing, and I do. So I'm going to drop the string off again, go back to this spot. I'm going to just concentrate, maybe kind of a little bit more hand pressure, it's hardly any, but I'm concentrating on wherever there is this low spot or high spot here that's causing that little bit of zizzing. Now, as I've said many times before, the effect of an uneven fret can be caused by a fret being actually high, which then gets in the way of the note you're trying to play, or a fret being actually low, in which case it makes the fret in front of it effectively high. This is actually a bit low. This is 1.1 at the moment, so I think I'm going to just boost this to a sensible action. There's no point chasing a ridiculous action. That's a bit more, back off. So we're talking tiny fractions now, but I like to aim for good and low if I can do it. And that's 1.2. That's good. Then hear it again. There's a little bit around that middle area still, so I'm just going to do one more time. It's very minor, I'm being very picky with this, but I'm going to go back to that area and just work it now a little bit more. Now this is using 400 grit paper on the underside of this truss rod, so it's taking away fret metal very slowly. One of the things when you're new to this, it can be quite scary. You can get the feeling that you're taking away a ton of metal, but actually it is really reassuringly slow. That's not bad, actually. Now I'm going to go and work the second one, which is always on the same calibration as the first one, because there's nowhere else to calibrate it, so I just work straight off this one. Now, once you've got the first couple of tracks done, on the first high E, you're just really concentrating on do the notes play okay, and that's what you're aiming for. And so once you get the E and the B done, then the thing you're really looking for then is do the notes, the bends on E work all the way across. So for example, we know that E notes play, but do they bend? Great. I haven't got enough spare bloody E strings to be playing this game. Oh. Right. So anyway, what was I saying? Yes, our objective is to make sure that not only do the notes play, but they bend cleanly across. And that's broken off around the, broken off. It's the knotting, it's this knotting thing. When you knot them, they'll break when you stretch them like this. So it's not a brilliant, I don't like it I don't recommend it particularly as a stringing method. And not only does it break the string, then it also sets you off having to dig around to get them, the shards of metal out from there. So let me see if these are some, Simon very kindly sends me these sets of spare strings, so I'm going to put one of these to use. So I've now got loads of these freebie sets courtesy of Simon, which I've nicked the high E string off because I've had to replace a broken high E. Oh my god, come on. During this process, the fret leveling or the setup. But where would I be without Simon? Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate this. These are slightly sticky, so they aren't behaving the way I'd expect, i.e. they're not unravelling the way I expect. So that's another. I wouldn't use these as playing strings anyway, so but they're really handy for exactly this purpose. So there we go. Chop that on. These strings have. Sorry, I haven't taken the shards of metal. Ah, oh, just stabbed myself now. Holy crap. So two things, Terry, I don't like about this method of stringing. First of all, you've left me bumblebees wasp stings to cut myself on, which I absolutely bloody hate. Right, cut them flush, please, folks. Okay, so I don't like being stung by these wasp stings, and also that other method of locking them around. Now I'm going to have to dig out this leftover stuff. Going to have to dig out the leftover metal afterwards. String. Now this is actually a 10, but never mind. That's good, they're playing the bends. Okay, right, I'm going to move on and calibrate the G slot, G track I call it. Same process. And this is it's a really effective method, but you get used to how this works, and I can tell you how it works. Your aim is to place down on one end and then get them all through the bar touching all three simultaneously with the same amount of pressure. And when you have that, you know that you've got the truss rod is tuned to the same curve as the neck, and it's microscopically different, or tiny adjustments, but when you get it, you know the feeling, and you can see everything connecting, and now that's the same shape as the relief in the neck. And so now I'm ready to level out the G track using this profile. So calibrate for each track that I can, only using the same one on the first two, because I tend to calibrate north of the track I'm working on, and of course you can't go north of E really and fall off the fingerboard. So here we go, I'm doing the G track now, again moving side to side, up and down, over the curvature of the fret, so I'm not making any flat spot anywhere. Now first check is, do all the notes play? There's a little bit of buzz there. This could be because the G is actually very low. Yeah, it's too low. It's just over 1 mil, which again is asking for trouble. So that's okay for now. So let's try those notes again. Again, down in the middle area, a little bit on the zizzy side, as I would call it. So I'm going to once again calibrate and calibrate north of the G in this case, and see what we've got. So we're just actually slightly, it's now registering a slightly over radius on the truss rod, and that feels just about right. So move this out of the way, spread the strings out of the way with the string spreader rubber thing, which is a piece of rubber pipe that I got from somewhere, don't know where. And now I'm going to again concentrate more on the first half of this neck at the moment, because that's where the zizzing seems to be more than the second half. So just getting this nicely levelled off. The thing is that when we get the G track level, it also enables us to bend into the G track from the other strings. See that? Clean that up. Great. Getting dirty as we go, that's how it works. So now I'm going to calibrate for the D track, and on we go. Again, we're now a little flattened out again, so the tiniest of tweaks. Again, I can't explain how tiny those amounts are, and now it's in line. So it probably moves a little bit while we're using it sometimes. It's not at all surprising that it will change. So sometimes if I'm not confident that what I'm doing, I'll stop and recalibrate it again to make sure. And as you do more and more, if you do this, the more you do it, the more experience you get at reading what the cutting is telling you. So it's a diagnostic. The way that this tool is cutting the tops of these frets gives you a very clear indication of what's happening with the frets. And actually what it also does is it quite quickly reveals the history of the frets too. So on a guitar that's been leveled, you can quickly start to see. Now again, I'm going to check the action as I go, because there's no point trying to go for something that's way too low, which this is really. Just going to tweak it up a little bit. That's a bit too much. Quarter of a turn this time, or an eighth. That's more like it. Eighth up. Eighth up. Right, so we're trying the D again. We've tried that. Let's just look at that one again. That's a fraction low as well. Eighth. Eighth. That's better. It's too low. Better. No point over egging it. Okay, that's too low. Right, we'll get there. Back off a tiny friction. What I'm going to do is put a bit of tuning off it again. Okay, switch that amp off, save batteries. Check the D track again. Just going to recalibrate that D. So I've done a few different things, and if I'm not sure where I am, what's going on, just recalibrate the track you're aiming to do. There's never any harm in doing that, and you'll see if the truss rod has wandered off in any particular configuration or direction. So that's good, it's still on target. We'll hook this across and do one more pass up and down the D track. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to do the A track next. And then once this is all done, the main complex part of the setup is done, and the remainder is re-profiling the frets, which have obviously been flattened a little bit in the levelling process, necessarily so. And once we've flattened them, we need to reprofile them to give them back a nice arch shape as opposed to slightly flattened on top. The amount of flattening we've done here is quite minimal, but it's still, in principle, you need to round them back off so that they're a nice arch shape, and that makes the fret much more playable, but it also corrects the drift of the intonation point, which moves forwards towards the bridge when you flatten them slightly. Nearly there, tiny little bit more. Yes, so we'll do that next. After this, we'll reprofile them. At the same time as doing that, I'll just soften off the nut edges with a file so that it's not sticking in your hand when you play. And then we will get ready to polish out the frets through a series of sandpapers or wet and dry papers, followed by a series of micro mesh papers, which will take it to a very high shine level of playability. And once we've done that, it'll be time to clean that up, check everything's working, and put some fresh strings on. Well, oil the fingerboard too, and then put some fresh strings on and stretch them out and intonate the strings so that the guitar plays notes true all the way up the fretboard. Okay, oops, falling off the board there. So there's 3 frets at the end that are ultra low, and they're not in. It doesn't matter because they're right at the end, thankfully. But I'm going to go across each track one more time on this, just to be sure. There's the tiniest hint of zingy zing. Yes, so that will be the next stage. So I'm just going to whiz over this again now, one more time, just for that last little. My tendency is to wimp out a bit early on this, because I'm so hesitant about taking any fret metal. I like to stop earlier than later, and sometimes I for the action I'm aiming for, I end up not going as far with the levelling as I ideally should, because I'm a wuss. But I'm going to double over it this time. It might be even a good idea to do that more often, just to double check it. But the thing about playing, doing fret levelling to such a kind of low action is any kind of changes in environmental factors can result in the clearance you had disappearing when you have such a low action. So it's a kind of you can be a victim of your own low action success. So I tend to set it for as ultra low and then back off a little bit so that there's a little bit more leeway. But it doesn't hurt to have got the frets just a little bit more level than they technically need to be, so that we can start out with that low action, and then the owner can, or I can send it back with a little bit higher than the minimum. And that just means there's a margin then for, I don't know, perhaps humidity changes, temperature changes, whatever types of climatic things that can cause a slight variation in the shape of the neck, which then snaffles away that clearance that you had, allowing those notes to play really low and light and fast. So I'm just doing one more pass on each thing, just making it that little bit better than it was, but not having to stop and listen, because that's as far as I'm going to go down. I'm pretty sure about that. Okay, so hopefully, with a bit of luck, I should aim to get this dispatched, I think Wednesday latest. I think I was going to finish it today, bill tomorrow, invoice tomorrow, and get it on its way back to Terry Wednesday for Friday at the latest. Yeah, 3 untouched frets right at the end. I don't think those have been deliberately flattened in any factory process. I think that's just a bit of luck, really, or bad luck, good luck, doesn't really matter. Because they're the last 3 in the whole rack, they don't cause any problems. Had they been 3 low ones right here in the middle, that would have been an issue, which would have caused buzzing and prevented us from having as low a playing action as we might have wanted. Okay, I think we're getting ready. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, having leveled to all those actions, that's just on the 1.5, which is my target. I'm going to just double check all of these. 1.4-ish, which is about right. Make sure the grub screws aren't rattling as well. That's good, that one's good. That one's good. A tad low. Tweak, tiniest of tweaks. That one is a fraction low too. Give that the tiniest tweak. Okay, I'm happy with that. Going to stop. Put all my fret leveling bits away. Stash those. A massive pile of spare strings, which I'm probably never going to use because I'm only really hunting down the replacement high E's. So, but these come in handy for doing test setups, well, not test setups, test neck alignments and things like that when you're building a guitar. And you just need 2 strings for a few minutes, and then you're going to chop them away. Okay, so there we have it. Frets leveled. Now is the time to say goodbye to this set of strings, and I have to say, all the horrible double winding. Now, partly what Terry's done here is he's used some of this he's used the easy lock setup, which it tells you to wrap these things around. Thank you. Just everything fall off. Wrap them around the 2 posts, so in one side and out the other. You end up having to do that, which is an absolute pain. I'd stopped using that even with the guitars with the twin thing on, because what I found was it created hassle to do this with, and you run the risk of scratching the headstock. And also on the higher strings I actually found that they didn't hold the thin plain strings anyway, so I just went back to my universal way. It's worked fine for every other guitar I've ever set up and put the strings on. I'll do it on this one as well. I mean, of course, Terry, you can revert to using the easy lock thing, but you can see it creates this hook of string which we have to clear out the way, and also when it breaks off like it did on the other one, we have to dig it out. This one, you see, as you get down to thin strings, you start fishing around with pliers, which does increase the likelihood of causing some damage on the headstock. Now this one, it will come out easily because I just put it on the regular way, but this one, now with a little loop of caught string, I have no means of getting it out other than putting something sharp under there, which then, like I say, increases the risk of the headstock being scratched, which as a fixer or a guitar tech I can well do without. See, look how long I'm having to spend to hook out this piece of wire that doesn't want to come out, basically. Right, finally. And then I've got loads of bits of wire knocking about. So these little chaps are going to get ditched and binned. And then one of the things I also learned is when you work with Wilkinson pickups, single coil pickups, possibly some of the other ones, cover them up with non-sticky paper, because the little silver letters, and they, by the way, some of Terry's letters have already come off. I noticed that before we started, but if you're not careful, you'll brush off or you'll wipe off these little Wilkinson letters very easily, too easily. Okay. Right. Okay, so I'm just going to brush off some of the dust off here now. So this, obviously, if you want to, the nut will come out. I'm going to leave it just there for now because it's quite firmly in, but it can come out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark up the frets again, ready for re-profiling them. And how boring view I am here, so sorry. If you've watched one of my videos, you've watched them all. Looking forward to doing a painting on a guitar not far from now. And it's interesting, I was over at my dad's today, and I announced to him that I was going to paint a picture on a guitar, and he just didn't get it. He said, well, why don't you put it in a frame? And I think my dad likes my painting skill and my ability. I think he's quite supportive or proud of it, but yeah, he thinks, you know, I guess he thinks art is art and it should be in a frame, not on a guitar. Anyway, so he wasn't massively impressed. But interestingly, although I've not often seen painted guitars that have caught my eye in any way, but I have seen some, and I said, Claire and I were discussing it earlier on, and actually it's the kind of pop art stuff that tends to look really good. Now there's a guy in Poland, I don't know his name, but he operates under the label Biper Art or Bipper Art or something like that, and he does a lot of really cool, kind of almost Soviet style, Soviet ethic artwork on old beat up guitars, and I think they look absolutely brilliant. So I'm planning to do a Tintin image on a Telecaster body, and of course one of the issues of about that is that it's I think it's copyright. The image is still copyright, so it's it's not something really I could offer for sale. But I think I'd just like to do it to keep it. It's going to look really cool. So what I've done is I've decided to had a few thoughts about how I was going to paint it, and where does the edge of the painting go, and what happens when you get to the edge, how does it meet the rest of the body, and so on. So the one thing I did was to choose look at the picture and choose a matching nitro colour to match one of the bigger areas of the picture, and it's a sort of tinting at night time on a dock side. And I picked the colour of the night sky, which is actually a pretty cool colour anyway. So I'll do the whole of the guitar. First of all, I'll do a primer, then I'll do the whole of the guitar in that sort of nighttime blue, and then I'm going to paint acrylics on top of that for the remainder of the scene. And I'll probably paint the blue areas again too, but the idea is that it will, where the picture ends, it'll then roll off into a very similar blue on the rest of the guitar body. But it's very stylised. I mean, people in my age group in the UK, kind of most of us grew up reading tinting books at some point in our lives. These frets were quite low and relatively flattened, actually. It's been played hard, this guitar, at some point. Either that or they've made it with fairly soft fret, the frets with fairly soft metal, or relatively soft metal. Okay, so that's the reprofiling done. One thing I'm going to do now, just to keep this. What am I going to do? How am I going to do? This, I'm going to find a bit of rag. This pickguard, this mint green pickguard, picks up dust really easily. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some paper over it and cover it right up. I was thinking maybe of using cloth, but I think it's probably going to be easier to just cover up as much as I can from here. And just simplify it so I'm not putting so much tape on. I don't know how effective this is. This doesn't stick massively well on the matte finish. I just want to kind of keep as much of the dust as I can off there, and also keep anything away from those pickups which are just waiting to shed their little silver letters as fast as they possibly can. Come on. It's just basically a way of holding down this paper. That should probably do. And then I'm going to mask off the neck anyway, which I'll go off camera because it's boring stuff. So next I'm going to mask off the neck. Actually, I'll also at the same time file this down a bit. To do that, I'm just going to use a hand file with a safe edge. There's not a lot that needs, I might do a tiny bit of Dremel on the very edge. I'm just going to take the sharpest bit off here, and the safe edge of the file is running against the wood, so it's kind of protecting it from any major damage. It does shine the wood up a little bit. The safe edge is still metal, so you've got to be conscious that it's not going to do nothing, but it stops it cutting into it. Okay. So I'm going to go off camera for a little bit while I do the sanding out. Actually, this is pretty pretty nicely fitted, so I'm not going to even do anything on the edges. Yeah, so I'm going to go off camera to do the sanding because it will take about half an hour of puffing and blowing to do it. And then I'll come back when it's time to put new strings on, and I'll fit a new set of 9s on here, which I've kept one set. I've got some more ordered, but I go through them like nobody's business. Also, at this point in time, I haven't cleaned the fingerboard at all, so I'll do that once this polishing process is done and get rid of all the gunk in one go. And then once in cleaning it, I'll also lift out some of the oil, so I want to replace that with some lemon oil, which I've just kicked onto the floor. I know where it is. So this is the easy bit, tearing off strips of masking tape, but I'll need to cut a whole series of thinner stuff, but I'll do that all off camera. So the next thing I'll do is come back on when we're re-stringing the guitar with new strings. But this, like I said, this is most of the what's the word? Precise stuff is done, and that's what's nice about this setup, is that now when I come back to where did I put the chopping board? What did I use? Ah, that's not great. I think I've just gone and used up my I have to use another one. I've gone and cut up my masking tape board. I'll use this instead. Yeah, the nice thing about doing that kind of setup is that when I've done all the precision stuff now, so I can just take everything off now, clean it all up, put it back together again, and then when I do and load it with strings, it will go back into the precise playing action that we had a bit earlier on. So I don't need to do any more. I just need to double check that none of the grub screws have moved and therefore the action hasn't changed. But I now know that I can restring it endless number of times now, and the action will be back to where I wanted it. And of course I also know that it's going to play now with the action set as it is. So I want about halfway and halfway, halfway and about halfway, just as a cutting guide. Yeah, so it will go back into the right playing action when I load it with strings. Okay, so I will see you at that point. Okay, and we are ready to go. Polished out, cleaned up, oiled, excess oil wiped off. Time to restring. There we go. So this, remember, I'm going to use the conventional method for restringing, but only because I am not too keen on the easy locks. And not, you know, I don't wish to sound like I don't like them or anything, but I can't stand them. No, I have no problem with them. They're just I like the regularity of the other method that I use. But anyway, I'll show you how it goes in my little world, and then you can decide next time. So these are Ernie Ball extras, no, super slinkies, 9s, 1, 2 and 3. So we're pretty much getting ready. Am I coming through the hole here? What's going on? Yep. Yep, only fitting the strings now, stretching them out and then intonating them and double checking the action to go, and we'll be done. I don't think I'm going to attempt to send this tomorrow. I think I will park it, double check it, make sure it's it's all stable and nice before, and then pack it tomorrow night. I have a rule that I have to hold myself back from trying to rush too quickly and doing it one night and then packing it, sending it the following day is too quick. Okay, so let's get close up. So here's what I do. I'm going to go through the top anyway, because we've got string trees and things here, so we haven't got to worry about the angle. So go through, pull it taut, tight, pull back 1 fret, wind on, hold this taut string, go over the top of the loose string, push it down and under the loose string as it comes around for the second time, and that then pulls nice and tight. We've got it, and then we snip off right to the stem, so nobody stung by the string wasps. Now if you had an issue with the strings not having enough break angle, then you could start off by anchoring the strings in the lower of the 2 holes on these easy lock tuners, but since I'm doing this sort of locking wrap method anyway, I can start at the upper one, it doesn't matter. And there are string trees too, so we don't need to use the easy lock tuner for the purpose of gaining some angle. We've got enough. There you go. Pull it up, taut, back 1 fret, wind it on, hold it, direct it over the top of the loose one to begin with, then downwards, pull up the loose one and direct the held one under the loose one on the second time round, and off with its head. Here we go. Always make sure on a tremolo block guitar that the string ball is up high, not caught on the edge of the block. Sometimes inevitably you're going to do that, but what will happen is the string will, the ball will pop through with a bang, and you'll know about it because it will suddenly go slack with a bang. Okay, here we go. Here's some helicopter manoeuvres chundering around in the night somewhere. Okay. Right. It's funny to hear a helicopter off in the dark when you live in the country, but then it is usually the one of the services doing exercises, I suppose they call it, training. Okay, so there's my spare bits, there's my rubbish, one side and the other. Right, so first things first, I'm going to get the strings, just give them a bit of a tug, get them on, seated on properly, make sure everything's in the right place. So before I tune it, I'm going to start just doing the stretching, the thumb and forefinger stretch. It seems to work for me, regardless of what it's stretching, whether it's just taking the slack out of the string length or the string train, including the tuners and so on, that's fine. But you still need to do it, and if you don't do it, you'll find the slack will be releasing itself when you least want it to, i.e. when you're playing. It'll keep on doing it for, can be up to years, believe it or not. You can hold on to its slack for years. Okay. Now we're going to get, I'll try this tuner, it's a bit worn out. I keep meaning, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take this in the house and find the one battery that's in there that might fit. Like lightning. Right, so another stretch, same thing, thumb and four fingers. So we're going to get this pretty much as stretched out as possible before we go into intonating it. Should be 3 or 4 of these sorts of stretches with some bit of string bends and things like that. We should be okay. Trying to be gentle with the high E because it's easiest one to break. Pretty much stabilized. Slight tiniest of pings in that E, so I am going to help it on its way. It's still making a slight complaining sound, so I'm going to just ensure with my blade, the back end of the blade and 600 grit paper, I'm just going to ensure that it's wide and not catching anything. A tiny ping, and those pings are the things that, the pings are the things, not those pings. These pings are the things that tell you that you need to just widen your string slot a little bit so it's not catching. Wow, that's incredibly light by comparison to the to where it was before. Okay, just going to do a quick, oh it's gone, quick intonation check. So we'll get our tuner out and we'll, whoa, don't fall over. Now we need a screwdriver. So the intonation checks whether each string is the correct length for this neck. Okay, that's a D pinging. A little bit of friction there, so we're just going to make sure it's running smoothly. fractionally sharp, but not a lot. It's very close. Again, still listening out for the pings while you do anything else. Keeping an ear out for those pings. And when you hear them, if you hear them, that's what tells you there's friction and your strings are binding in the nut. Interesting, that one comes out as flat. There's a ping on the A. Ping on the A is all mine, all mine. Ping on the A. Let's get a little bit of loosening up going on here. Ping. Slight pings, ladies and gentlemen. Not this one, this one. Tiny pings, tiny pings, tiny pings, tiny pings, tiny pings. I'm going to go down one grade and I'm going to use the tape. No, what's this stuff? Sandpaper. Right, having done all that, now go across the playing actions one more time for a final tweak. I'm not even, because it's late, I'm not even going to plug this in. I'll do it indoors, but I'm not going to do it on video. It's just for the sake of the neighbours. Okay, we are one and a fraction, not quite enough. 1 and a width. Okay, half a turn back, half a turn back, quarter of a turn I should say. Okay, I like. Right, one more tuning. Tiny ping. One last little bit. Still got the tiny ping in that low E slot. I just want to widen it, twist that a little bit more. Delicious, there we go. Vintage V6 icon with a distressed look. Nicely set up. New nut, adjustable nut. Oh, must remember to stick on the new thing. The hex key. There it is. I'll tell you, I'll stick it to here, that's safer. There is the hex key. Ta-da. Okay, V6 vintage icon. Thanks for watching. Nice and straightforward. I knew when this one came in it would be pretty straightforward. One thing I want to do just before I finally go indoors and call it quits on today, I just want to check the bolts at the back of the neck, make sure that they're done up properly, because felt a bit of a creak earlier on, and they seem to be okay. They've been messed up. That's interesting. So somebody's churned these up before, so they won't go up any further. These need to be replaced, really, ideally, at some point. It's not no major problem, but those two at the bottom have been stripped by somebody heavy-handedly working them. So they won't they won't tighten up anymore. There we go. Alright, see you soon.